get started. My name is Steve Jones. I don't think there's anybody here that doesn't know that. Anyway, I'm Steve Jones. I'm the president of Crossroads Blues Society. I'd like to thank you all for coming today. And Carl Cole and I were discussing doing blues in the schools, last fall, I think it was. And we had all these great plans, and COVID shut us down. And then we were coming back in the late fall, early winter, and then COVID shut us down. And then we said, well, let's do it in January. Oh, well, no, COVID shut us down. Well, Black History Month, we could do February. No, COVID shut us down. And so did March. And so did April. And so we finally got together in May and got this going. Carl is from Freeport. He's from a family of 7 talented individuals. And he's got a talented family. His lovely wife, Dianna, and his son, Andrew, are here today with him. And they're going to be supporting the program. What we put out to do was to do some blues in the schools. And usually I get up, I do my little spiel, and I go hide somewhere and let the people in town go on and do their thing. And Carl said, "Oh, no, you're going to be in this." I said, "No, I'm not singing, I'm not dancing, certainly not dancing." Although I do dance, as Bob will contest, Bob and I both have danced in front of little children many hundreds of times, literally. And it's not a beautiful thing. So we took what I was going to say at the beginning and kind of parsed it out and put it throughout the little presentation. So today we got an fancy room. We've got overheads for this. So we'll see how that goes. And see how it works. We tried. We went out to the school. We communicated via email and a couple of phone calls, and got it all done. And we got there and did it, and they were like, "Ooh, this was really good." And I think he's been hired by the school, and they're sending me a $500 grant from Crossroads. And I admitted to the principal that we'd never met face to face, and 2, it was the first time we'd ever done this, and it worked out pretty darn well. So we're doing it again.
Wonderful.
And we'll do some more after this.
Ready for the university.
The university exists. So a little bit who we are, Crossroads. We were founded in 1994 out in Lanark, Illinois, incorporated as 501c3. We're a nonprofit organization, staffed by volunteers, over 250 members. I think it's closer to 280 now. And our primary purpose is to raise money to do Blues in the Schools program, which we call BITS. And these music programs are done since now May 2002, and they're done free to participating schools. We started, as I said, this, and by the end of this school year, we'll probably be closer to 775 programs for over 101,000 students by the end of the school year, and which is amazing because when COVID shut us down, the year before COVID hit, the last full school year, we did 141 programs, which was crazy. Really went nuts. But due to COVID, we got shut down. But we came up with alternate ways to do things. So we have done online. We've done anything we can. Outdoor programs, and in the 3 school years, the half a school year, the full school year, and this year with at least half the school year impacted by COVID, and more, not more. We still did over 90 programs each of those 3 school years. So we're proud of it. We do assemblies, we do small instructional classroom residency type programs. We do that mostly at high schools. And we do small interactive group programs with kids as young as preschool, which is, that Bob will also attest, can be a challenge, it can be a lot of fun, and it's probably the most rewarding thing that we do, because young kids are just precious and fun. Okay. We created an activity book a few years ago, which is really background information for the kids. It's got a short history of the blues, goes into subjects we don't cover with kids. We don't talk about slavery with kids. Talking to little kids about slavery, that should not be the first time a kid is exposed to the idea that 350 Americans were owned by other people. That's not something that we want to stress to them, and then that needs to be done in a more private and family environment, I think. So we get around that, we look around that, but we talk about the positive sides of it with the blues. And the blues, it started from some inauspicious beginnings, but we go how it's the benefits that have come from it, which is a good thing. And we talk about instruments, and there's some other stuff in materials in there that the kids can do, the teachers can use as examples for the kids for their education purposes, which is good, and gives the teachers an idea of what it's all about. All right, the other resources, the Blues Foundation, the National Education Outreach Campaign for Martin Scorsese's films, got all kinds of great information. If you're interested, I can send you this. And this stuff, the other resources stuff is suitable for more middle school, high school. It's more advanced type stuff. This is Carl Cole.
Oh my Lord.
Looks just like this guy here. He doesn't know. He's been playing organ since he was about 11 years old, I think. And he had his first, he got his first paid gig at 11. And so that was, what, 23 years ago? But he plays all over. He plays regularly up at Francesco's. You still have that gig?
Sometimes.
Yeah. So he's all over the place and fantastic musician. And it's a pleasure working with him.
Thank you, sir.
And he's played with the Symphony Orchestra in Rockford. And he founded and organized and runs the Yes Club, the Young Eagle Success Club, which we'll talk about at the end of the program. And has kids that sing and actually compete at the Illinois State Fair. So they get out. So our little effort here is merging our Blues in the Schools program with the Young Eagle Success Club to help both keep the blues alive and to work and build on tomorrow's leaders. The Cole family throughout these illustrations, as I said, Dianna and Andrew will be joining Carl, and we'll get to enjoy their music too. All right, so African music. African music is really the impetus and source of the blues. And people think, a lot of the stuff, like banjos, banjos are invented in America. My friend is adamant about that. I said, no. I said, well, look, it's an American instrument. I said, no, it's an African instrument. It was a gourd with an animal skin on it with some strings on it. Well, it wasn't like today's banjo. I said, no, they didn't have steel in those days. Nobody had steel. But it's the same thing. It's just we may have perfected it, but it came from Africa. So the kora is really the first banjo that was out there. There's kalimbas and biras, talking drums, balafons, shakira, djembe, udu, marimbas, and algaitas. And there's all sorts of instrumentation that was used in Africa and became adapted for European and American uses, and other uses worldwide too, that influenced music all around the world. So this music came to us through slavery, obviously, and people that lived on plantations brought their oral tradition, their music, and their rhythm with them, and that really lived on. It wasn't shared because people didn't leave the plantation. So that stayed local until after emancipation. But this music existed, and I think we'll just kick off everything with work in the spiritual world with our first song of the day.
Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. I looked over Jordan and what did I see? Coming for to carry me home. I saw a band of angels coming for me, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home.
45,000 plantations there were. 350 million people worked at those plantations in America, Caribbean, and some more in South. If we had South America, many, many more. The roots of the blues come to us from Africa. People came here to work from sunrise to sunset, And they worked, and as they worked, they sang songs, field hollers, work songs. And they worked from sunrise to sunset, 6 days a week. And they were forced to, this one, is there more? So they worked 6 days a week, sunrise to sunset, horrible conditions. And on Sundays, they went to church. They were exposed to European music through church music. So you mix the field hollers and work songs, the African music together, and that became the blues. From 1865 to about 1900, after emancipation, people left the plantations, moved into the towns, moved into the cities, and what we know of as the blues today, the old traditional blues, is what came to be in that last part of the 19th century. If you want to see where this happened, it happened predominantly in the Mississippi Delta, and then if you look, the dark areas are where where the plantations were. So the Mississippi Delta running up into the hill country of Mississippi in the middle there. On the east coast, the Piedmont, through the Carolinas and Georgia, and into Virginia, was where the plantations existed, mostly cotton, but other crops too. And then East Texas was also a place where there were plantations. So the blues kind of grew up in 3, maybe 4. If you kind of look at the Delta blues versus hill country blues, they're a lot different. But so the blues arose in a lot of these different areas and started to move around the country. So we're going to start out on our blues trip with the first recorded and first set of book music that was put down on paper. We're going to start out with St. Louis Blues, done by W.C. Handy, who was the first man to record blues.
I hate to see that evening sun go down. Oh, I hate to see that evening sun go down. 'Cause when the sun goes down, that means my baby left town. And if I feel tomorrow like I feel today, if I feel tomorrow like I feel today, I'm gonna pack my bags and make my getaway. Oh, yeah.
The blues is secular music, and the blues. There are some blues that have some religious overtones, but really the blues and gospel music kind of came about around the same time, about in the country and eventually moving into the cities. And the blues is about. Some people think the blues is a little depressing. Well, it may have started out with some topics that were not happy topics, but the whole kind of idea of talking about your blues is therapy. If you share your blues with somebody else, you feel better, and you can both commiserate together, or you can the two of you together can start talking about like how it meant to me too, but you get overall things are positive, and you get on with it. But on the other side of things, church music was involved with coming and bringing the blues together, but also the emancipated slaves also put together another form of music called gospel music, which is pretty much the sacred part of the blues, I guess, so to speak. And now we're going to do that. So instead of looking at the blues, we're going to look at hope and salvation and do a little bit of gospel to them.
Jesus
gospel got out. And other people started hearing it. And one of the early offshoots of the blues was country music, and then shortly thereafter, bluegrass music. And I put actually one of my favorite name bands, although I can't say they're not my favorite band to listen to, the Skillet Lickers, but that's a real band. And I learned about them through Spencer Bode, God rest his soul, passed away. But he did a one-song blues in the school program that started with a field holler, worked through Charlie Patton and the Skillet Lickers, and everything up to the Rolling Stones with the same song adapted to show how our music, is just an adaptation of blues. So I've become fascinated with the Skillet Lickers ever since then. But country music adapted the blues, the same chords. White musicians took what they heard the black musicians doing, and blended it with a little bit of European roots stuff, not much, a little Celtic, especially the bluegrass has much more Celtic overtones. And that country blues then gave us country music. So next we will do one I think you'll all recognize.
I'm crazy for feeling so lonely. I'm crazy for feeling so blue. I knew you loved me as long as you wanted. And then someday you'll leave me for somebody new. Worry, why do I let myself worry? Wondering what in the world did I do to you? I'm crazy for thinking that my love could hold you. I'm crazy for trying, crazy for crying, crazy for loving you. I'm crazy for trying, and I'm crazy for crying, crazy for loving you. I'm crazy for trying, I'm crazy for crying, crazy for
Well, the blues kept moved into the cities, down south. Cities in Mississippi, New Orleans, Atlanta, all over the south, up to Memphis. And this country, it's like music today. Every time this kind of music comes around, there's always some one-upmanship and trying to make it better, something new and different, because the old stuff's old. We need something new and better. Well, in the cities, people like Ma Rainey and Bessie Smith and so many other great artists started singing the blues with a small ensemble behind them. Got on their railroad trains and traveled around the vaudeville circuit, the Chitlin circuit, running up to New York and Harlem, running the Washington and all through the South and even to the West Coast. And this city blues, for lack of a better word, became usually popular and took the nation by storm. So we're going to do a early city blues song by T-Bone Walker, one of my favorites.
Well, they call it stormy Monday, but Tuesday just as bad. Oh, they call it stormy Monday, but Tuesday's just as bad. But I found out that Wednesday is worse, and Thursday is oh so sad. But I found out that the eagle flies on Friday, Saturday I go out to play. I heard the eagle flies on Friday, my brother Dan Saturday go out to play. Sunday I go to church, getting down on my knees, and I gotta pray. And I say, Lord, have mercy on me. Oh, Jesus, have mercy. My heart is in misery. Lord, you know I'm crazy about Dianna. Please bring her back to me. Please bring her back to me.
As all this is going on, nothing happens in a vacuum, and all this stuff, it's not like this happened here, and then it did that. There's so many things happening at the same time and going different ways, and people experimenting. And one of the big experimentations of blues was jazz. Jazz was being developed. New Orleans is the center of jazz, and that rapidly spread around the nation. Jazz, is heavily into improvisation, and there's all kinds of stuff, early legends of what happened in jazz as it developed right after the turn of the century, the beginning of the 1900s. But there's one guy who I always was intrigued with, was Buddy Bolden, who some people, by legend, some people say he was the first jazz musician. He played playing blue notes on his trumpet that people would just hear and just walk blocks just to see what this man was doing with this magical, mystical new version of the devil's music. So the jazz had some European influences to it, certainly, but it more so is an offshoot of the blues. So next we will move into the jazz realm with a little Nat King Cole medley.
Yes, sir. Mr. Steve, I saw a good friend of mine that I've done lots of stuff with, recorded with him and everything. And he's in this room right now. He's a great music person, too.
Yeah.
Dan Danielowski. And the only reason I recognized him is because he looks as young as he did 20 years ago. That's the only reason I recognize him.
He does that like great stuff. He puts it in just to make him look the stage.
Oh, sure.
It's for the way you look at me. Oh, it's for the only one I see. B is very, very extraordinary. E is even more than even that you adore can. Love is all that I can give to you. Love Get your kids on Route 66. What do you want from Chicago to LA? Over 2,000 miles on the way. Get your kids on Route 66.
All right, you know where it's going.
Where you go to St. Louis, Joplin, Missouri, Oklahoma City, Miami, see Amarillo, Gallup, New Mexico, Flagstaff, Arizona. Don't forget we're nowhere. Kingman, Boston, San Bernardino, and you to this time it is right. Oh, when you ain't that California trip. Get your kids on the Route 66.
What is that up in Andrew?
Well, you go through St. Louis, Joplin, Missouri, Oklahoma City, Miami, see Amarillo, Gallup, New Mexico, Flagstaff, Arizona. Don't forget Winona, Kingman, Boston, San Bernardino. Get here to this kind of We'll make that California. Get your kids on Route 66. Get your kids on the Route 66. Get your kids on Route 66.
It's on Route 66.
Oh, yeah.
All right. That's good. So while all this is going on, the Industrial Revolution is moving into full swing. Factories are opening up north. There's the need for thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds, millions of workers. And there's people that are sharecropping and living through Jim Crow and looking for a better life for their families in the north with the steel mills and factories and things that are opening up. So people moved up north, brought their music with them. And the Great Migration between 1900-ish and 1940, the beginning of World War II, brought the blues up Mississippi, through St. Louis, to Minneapolis, over to Chicago, Detroit, up the coast, through Washington and Philadelphia, New York and Boston, up through San Diego and Los Angeles and Oakland and San Francisco. And the blues got electrified and amplified. And urban blues came to be. And one of the hotbeds, if you switch around, we can take the path, and you can. This one's got some animations, so you can see the blues moving up from the Mississippi Delta and East Texas and the Piedmont, and it would move up into the cities and up and up and up and up and up and up, and then it would go up it went out to the coasts. It went over to England, which we'll talk about in a little bit, and came back to America with the British invasion. I think there's one more. Yeah, there we go. Came back to America. So the Great Migration brought the blues all over America, and places like Chicago were one of the biggest hotbeds of the blues. On the next slide, people always say the south side of Chicago is the home of the blues. Well, the blues in Chicago probably started on the west side of Chicago, because it started with the immigration actually started with the Jews as they left Eastern Europe, came to America, and they settled on the west side of Chicago on Maxwell Street, opened up their shops, their tailor shops, their bakeries, their restaurants, all their workplaces, and that became a place for poor immigrants. Well, the next wave of poor immigrants came up with through the Great Migration, and one of the things they used to say on Maxwell Street, they didn't see black or white. The only color that people cared about was green, because they all wanted to make money. So Maxwell Street became the home of the blues. It started with Big Daddy Stovepipe and so many others, and the blues on the west side, and then later the south side of Chicago became instrumental in giving us so many other kinds of music, which we'll talk about later. But first off, let's do an urban Chicago blues type song. So in the 30s and into the 40s, jazz kind of gave way and became swing music. Jump blues became popular with frontmen of all races, from people like Louis Jordan and Jimmy Dorsey and Glenn Miller and so many other bands. And this became one of America's most important music forms back in the 30s and 40s. So next, we're going to move into a little bit of a swing and jump tune by
I got my fingers crossed. Not that I'm superstitious. I'm afraid it's too good to be true. I got my fingers crossed. No wonder I'm superstitious. I'm so gay and the skies are much too blue.
the evolution of music. So we got swing music, jump blues, we got urban blues, but tastes change. People want more. So the next thing that came out of those two kinds of music, and a little bit of other influences, as people lived in the cities, became more urban and erudite, was rhythm and blues, which was the next thing that audiences craved for that they heard. So now we're going to move over and do a little bit of R&B. Chuck Berry to move from St. Louis to Chicago and record blues and mostly rock and roll on their label. And then people on the East Coast and West Coast were serving up rock and roll. And the Chicago blues was the biggest influence on the British. There's an old story of Keith Richards walking through a train station, and there was a skinny, emaciated-looking guy with long hair who happened to be Mick Jagger, with two blues records under his hand, the front one being a Muddy Waters record. And Keith goes up to him, "Hey, mate, you listen to that music?" He says, "Yeah." "Oh, me too." And they got together and started playing music together. And the rest became the Rolling Stones, which was a band you might have heard of. So, and then these British people brought our music back to us, doing Mick Jagger doing Little Red Rooster instead of Howlin' Wolf. But they respected the tradition, because they brought Muddy and Howlin' Wolf and all the blues guys over with England, and when they came to America, they toured with them, and they respected where the music came from, which was cool. So you can see there's some early rock and rollers who you might recognize here. It'll be a test at the end. So next we're going to do a rock and roll song. one of my favorite guys, who is one of the fathers of soul and rock and roll and lots of other things, Mr. James Brown.
Sugar and spice, y'all. I feel nice, like sugar and spice, y'all. So nice, 'cause I got you. When I hold you in my arms, I just can't do no wrong. When I hold you in my arms, the love won't do me no harm. I feel good, good, good. I would. I feel good, good, good. Like I knew that I would, y'all. So good, so good, so good, so good, so good, so good. 'Cause I got
I think we'll open up in the back row.
I never thought I could get that.
I can't underestimate about 3 sizes smaller. Sorry. So, things keep changing. The sexier and more suave and cool side of R&B kind of evolved in places like Stax Records in Detroit, Motown, and in Memphis. And we got soul music was the next thing to take over the airwaves and grab the limelight of music. If you go to my 45 record boxes, my 45 RPM records, you'll find two things in it that predominate. One is Beatle records, and the other is Motown records. And probably 75, maybe 80, 90% of my Motown records are Temptations. I love the Temptations. The Temptations. I love the Supremes, and I loved everybody else that were on Motown, but I love the Temptations. And they were one of my favorites. So now we do Soul Song, and by another artist who loved us far too early, Mr. Sam Cooke.
Darling, you send me. I know that you send me. Darling, don't you know that you send me? Honest you do, honest you do, honest you do. Oh, you thrill me, darling. You thrill me, darling. Don't you know you thrill me? Honest you do, honest you do, honest you do. Well, the first time I thought it was infatuation, but then it lasted for so long. Then I found myself wanting to marry you and take you home. Don't you know you thrill me, darling? You thrill me. I
Well, just like with jazz, soul music gave my generation, young boys, a chance to slow dance, which, God forbid, we love to do that. But there's people who didn't like to slow dance. And just like with jazz, we got swing music because people didn't like to slow dance. They wanted something to dance a little more energetically to. So out of soul music, the next thing that came about was disco. So out of all good things, a little Rainless Falls. And I was never a big. Actually, I wasn't a disco fan because how could you not like Donna Summer and people like that? I mean, how can you not like that? I wasn't a big John Travolta fan. The music was great. It was great. And, if you're not moved by disco, no matter how good or bad it was, you just don't have the soul. It makes you go. So now we're going to move into disco next. Yeah. They took over some of the club, right? It was the DJ that was in charge, and hip hop evolved out of that era in the 80s, and by 1990 it was East Coast versus West Coast on the rap scene too. But it was a new thing from kids from New York and Los Angeles, East Coast versus West Coast. But the idea of rap is it's oral tradition. It's a story given to a beat, told to a beat. And that stuff has been going on for thousands of years in Africa, where they could write their stories. But one thing they also did was tell their stories orally to a beat, and we'd pass it on from generation to generation. So the idea of rapping, or orally telling a story, is nothing new that these kids in New York and Los Angeles rediscovered. But it's been going on for generations and hundreds, if not thousands of years. So next we'll move into that area with a little bit of Mr. Cole's adaptation of the check.
Situation or proclamation in the air like a sea, up beyond the galaxy. I'm gonna let down the road and everywhere I go. Man, in the windows out the door, up the through the ceiling and the floor. Man, anywhere, everywhere, anywhere I go, yeah. Man, every situation all across the nation I'm going to. Let me shine.
At Spectrum Progressive School, these young lads made a beeline to the front of Charles' piano, and they're saying, "You can freestyle." It's like, okay, not just young people can do it. Right? So if you don't like rap and hip hop, I have a one-word answer for you that might change your mind. Hamilton. Go see Hamilton. Go see the play Hamilton, because the play Hamilton. If you're not a rap and hip hop fan, if you come out of that play and you don't like that music and that, then probably should call the MPs and have your heart checked. It's amazing music, and it's all rap and hip hop. It's cool. It is so cool. All right. So this is I'm a nerd. You all know I'm a nerd. You know that I'm a nerd, and I like graphs, and I like math, and I like spreadsheets, and I like pictures and flow charts.
You're so good
this is
at
a flow.
You're so good at it.
Yeah. I am good at it, but I am a nerd, I do admit it. So this is a flow chart of what we just went through, right? We had country blues, which quickly broke off to country and bluegrass. Jazz, city blues, urban blues, swingy jump blues, R&B, rock and roll came from R&B and urban blues, soul came out of R&B, soul gave us disco and hip hop. This is grossly oversimplified, but it's a graph, right? And today's blues blends all of that together. There's pieces and parts of that people are playing and doing with great success. As much as blues could be great success. There's not a lot of people getting rich in the blues world, there's some, but a lot of people making a living in the blues world, which is cool. So, more animation, because Steve is a geek. Like I said, Steve is a geek. So if you take that, what we talked about before, about the Bielawas work songs coming from African music, and church and local music coming from European music, give us the blues. Alan will step through here. We got jazz, we got country, we got gospel music, we got R&B, we got rock and roll, and we got rap and hip hop stuff too. And griot is the African. The griots were the storytellers for the African peoples. So the next slide is even geekier. So I get, and Alan's just stuff through them all out. There's, calypso, mento, and ska, reggae, and Appalachian music, bluegrass, praise, soul, funk, Cuban, Latin, disco, hip hop all come from that. There's a test. Yeah, so hopefully you know what it's fast. All right, so we want to lay out a timeline. So Steve is a nerd too. So here's a timeline of all that. Jazz probably was the first to emerge out of it, but you could argue that country music and city blues did too, but jazz was probably recorded first. Country and city blues, evolved around the same time, just after the turn of the century. Then swing and jump blues in the 30s, and urban blues in the late 30s and the 40s. By the 40s, that was pretty much going pretty full swing. Then the 50s, R&B and rock and roll kind of evolved, and then soul in the 60s, and disco in the 70s, and hip hop and rap started in the 80s, and all coming up to today. And now all forms of music are so popular all across American music, we're adapting them into multiple forms, because you can probably name 5 or 10 different kinds of rock and roll music alone, that exist out there. So these forms are all being adapted into subgenres and subgenres and subgenres that people are adapting here in America and across the world. So that's it for our presentation. Just put a little plug in for things we're doing. Next Saturday, we've got Blues in the Schools in the Park, celebrating our 20th anniversary of Blues in the Schools. Like I said, we've done almost 800 programs by the end of this year. We're going to celebrate it next Saturday with a 6-hour program from noon to 6 p.m. And Carl's going to open the day. Then we have Dave Fields and his band from New York City doing some rock and blues. And then we've got Joe Flusco coming from, he lives outside of Chicago, one of the harmonica masters and a spokesman for harmonicas. And we have 200 harmonicas coming in this week. And the first 200 kids that get there will be will be terrorizing their parents with harmonicas until their parents hide them. I have no idea how many who's coming to this, if we're going to have 200 kids there even, but we have, just in case, we're going to have harmonicas. And then after Joe's done, we have Taz Crew. Taz Crew is a musician from Syracuse, New York. We met him when he won a Keeping the Blues Alive award for his work in Blues in the Schools in 2014 when we were down there, Rick and Bob and a bunch of us were down there in Memphis getting Keeping the Blues Alive award for Crossroads. So we got to meet Taz, and that was in January, and shortly thereafter he visited us, and every year since then he's been here doing work with us. So we got Taz coming back to that, so we're looking forward to that.
Yeah.
And the way we pay for all this is through our festival. We started out, the festival wasn't lucrative for us until about 2015-ish. So, but our Blues in the Schools programs were 8, 10, 15 a year. Now, like I said, we're doing 90, 140 in our best year before COVID. So that's funded by our festival, which is August 27th. And this year it's Women in the Blues. We're celebrating women in the blues world. We've got 5 acts on the main stage. We start at noon with Melody Angel, at 2 p.m. with Donna Rula, at 4 p.m. with Tia Carroll, making her first Midwest run. She's a soul singer from San Francisco. We've got Rachel Murphy at 6 p.m. and at 8 p.m. Feeny Tucker, who is Tommy High Heel Sneakers Tucker's daughter, who lives in Ohio and is a great singer, amazing singer in her own right, and it's really fun. And then local artists Gina Meeks and Amani Avery will be performing in between acts. So we've got 7 acts, 9 sets of music to enjoy throughout the day. So it's only $10. Those shows are only $10 in advance, $15 per hour. And I happen to have tickets here today. And next is the other part of this, is the Yes Club. Carl, you want to talk a little bit about the Yes Club?
Well, my mother passed away a couple of years ago, and she always taught all of us excellence. We really didn't know much about racism because Mom just said, go to school, behave well, get good grades, do your talent, and get home and sit down and shut up. So, I mean, that's all we knew. So I'm so blessed that she inspired me to use music to help kids to learn about respect and responsibility and to get good grades and good behavior. So that is the foundation of our Young Eagles Success Club, to teach them to say yes to success instead of just telling them no. When you tell them no, they have a tendency to do what you said don't do. So we teach them to say yes. But then we teach them that if you say yes to success, you're going to say no to drugs and alcohol and violence and crime and social emotional stress. So I've been very blessed. Diana's been working with me for probably 4 decades on this thing, and we're really excited. Andrew is a product of the Yes Club, and we are a 501c3, so we are tax write-off, but the most important thing is that we believe that kids can be their best, but they need to be inspired and empowered to be their best, and that's what we do. So we're like a system of support for parents, teachers, guardians, and even law enforcement. There's a good one for you. So we help the kids to know that if they don't follow the 3 R's, respectful, responsible, and reasonable, they might end up in 3 places: the hospital, jail, or dead. So that's what we do.
If you would like to make a donation to Yes, we're not collecting for Crossroads. We are collecting for Yes. The collection plate's there, a little sign there by the collection. If you'd like to throw a few shillings in the plate there, we'd be happy to pass them on to Carl and his efforts. The second part of this program gets rid of me, which is good. Get rid of that old guy with the shirt that needs new batteries. And it'll be Colton Company, who will be Carl and his lovely wife Dianna and his son Andrew, serving up some more favorites. So, in summary, we at Crossroads are working hard to keep the blues alive here in northern Illinois, southern Wisconsin. CrossroadsBluesSociety.com. You don't even need a www when we have a separate website for our festival. And we're all over Facebook and other places. And Carl's online with his Yes Club. You can find the Young Eagles Success Club online too. Does anybody have any questions for Carl or myself? No? Probably not hungry. So the next part summer program comes after snacks. My wife, my lovely wife Annette, has made some stuff for us to enjoy. So we'll take a quick break and retire to the fellowship hall. We can have some snacks and chat and have a good time. And we'll be back with Cole and Company. Give it up for Carl.